his screws loose, they done stripped the bolts on him. Shoulda never sent him to pick up the work for him. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in the rush, they was all goners. Tank cursive on the jets, he was gonna Sean John them. They was sleeping on the god, then it dawned on them.
All right. Greetings, Chudlings. Welcome to another episode of Chuddy's Corner. It's Sunday, January 21st, just a tick past 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. The Celtics win on the road against the Rockets, 116-107. We're here to break that all down. I am your host, Dugouts. With me as always, Chuddy, King Chuddy. How you feeling today?
Feeling good. Always good to be back in the win column. Sweeping Ime Udoka. Maybe we'll quiet a little bit of noise, but you never know. There's always people talking. But I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I feel like I'm battling. If I sound a little off, I think I'm battling maybe a little bit of a cold here. Kind of feeling a little bit like a noodle. But, the grind doesn't stop. Celtics games will be played no matter what I'm feeling like. So I'll be here with you guys unless I'm incapacitated completely.
Jesus.
Yeah. So if I
are you questionable for the second half of the back-to-back?
No. I mean, we might just. I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe just not going to my real job. My fake job, as I like to call it, but the job that pays most of my bills tomorrow.
Job?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do a little rest day. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Might just grind it out though. Who knows? But yes, we're gonna get into the Celtics 116-107 win. Before we do that, make sure that you're following the at Chuddy's Corner page on Twitter. Make sure you follow me at Doug_outs. Make sure you're following Chud at King Chuddy, and also make sure that whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on, you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review too. We've been getting a few ratings and reviews lately. Those are always nice to read. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page as well. All different types of way to get your Chuddy fix. Special thanks to our sponsor, Nick Perino Real Estate, nickperino.com. All your real estate needs. Current home of everything Chuddy's Corner, including Chuddy's weekly power rankings. A new one will drop tomorrow. Keep an eye out for that. Soon the website will be, I know I've been plugging the new website, but eventually it's going to be going live. We're just loading all the old stuff. So when you go in there, yeah, I've seen it. It's looking great. Real. It's looking beautiful. So we're getting going on that. But tonight we're here to talk about the Celtics and the Rockets. Again, 116-107 win. Got a little bit hairy at a few points there. Rockets missing a ton of players. Celtics missing Drew Holiday and Al Horford. Horford, I'm assuming, just resting for tonight. They said Drew should be good to go tomorrow as well. Sam Hauser getting the start for Drew. I'm sorry, my brain's a noodle right now. But again, Porzingis, 32.9 for Porzingis. He kind of leads the way. Rough shooting night for the Jays. Jaylen got himself involved, though. He got a triple-double. But go ahead and give us just a recap of the game, Chuddy. How'd the game play out for us?
So, very interesting game, I thought, all around. The Rockets had a game, not last night, go to overtime, hard-fought battle. So they had a few guys out. They were dealing with the second night of a back-to-back tonight, which led to a fascinating starting lineup where they had the big man Sengun down low and surrounded basically by four guards. And four very young guards. They had Jalen Green, then they had two rookies with Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore in there, and then Dylan Brooks basically playing power forward, who we know he's like a tough physical player, but obviously vastly undersized. So it was very interesting to see how that would look. And it seemed like it worked out pretty well for the Celtics. Like you said, it was a second game in a row. It just came out a lot of KP on the early going. He got 15 points in the first quarter. He had hitting a couple threes. They were feeding him down low. They just had no one really to stop him. It wasn't even Sengun. They like to keep him kind of closer to the basket and stuff. So it was a lot of they tried Jayshawn Tate on him. They were trying Brooks on him. They were trying I saw Jalen Green. Like basically all their guys were mixing around. They just have no one really at all who can handle him. So it's good to see the Celtics kind of recognize that, taking advantage. We were dominating the offensive boards, dominating the rebounds really in general.
Yeah.
Eating them alive on the second chance points, and then kind of got the rest of our game going too, especially more in the second quarter. The ball movement was just absolutely humming. The threes were falling. It was kind of that beautiful Celtics basketball open up with back-to-back 35-point quarters, 70 ball in the first half, and it felt like, everything was right back on track. Like you said, it was a lot of Porzingis, a lot of Derrick White. He had a really good game too. He's getting a lot of rebounds, but he seems to have his shooting and scoring touch back a bit. The Jays weren't doing a ton, but honestly didn't really need to do a ton. Again, if we score 70 points in a half, doesn't really matter who's generating a lot of those points. You mentioned the Jaylen triple-double. He had 5 assists in the first half, so he's obviously being involved. It seemed like, honestly, everyone was playing pretty well. Guys were coming in the bench. Cornette, Pritchard, Hauser in the starting lineup. He was hitting some shots. They were all looking pretty good. The pace was there. Again, the rebounds were there, especially the offensive rebounds. And then for the second game in a row, a lot of that really changed in the second half. I give credit to the Rockets. They made some adjustments. They came out in the second half, and you could tell they had really upped it a notch with their ball pressure and physicality on defense. So you can only imagine what kind of stuff Ime was yelling at him in the locker room. But they certainly came out inspired. I thought they did a really good job on defense. And I thought the Celtics came out, again, I don't want to say flat in the third quarter, but they kind of seemed like they had already done the job. I'm sure maybe there were some lingering effects from the game a couple weeks ago against the Rockets, where they kind of did go away in that second half. Maybe thought that would be the case again, but it was certainly not the case. The Rockets came out a different team. They were just playing really, really hard, really physical. They're getting their hands on a lot of balls. They were forcing a lot of turnovers, and the Celtics were doing them some favors with some really sloppy passes, sloppy dribbling. There was like a 3-minute stretch back and forth at one point where it was like Bad News Bears type of, or that like whatever clown car music.
I think I know
where it was just like
the sessions you're talking about, where both teams were just like
it was them too,
dribbling and just losing the ball was back and forth.
Yeah, to see the Celtics play that way, and then I mean again, as we had mentioned, was an issue in the Nuggets game. It seemed to be an issue again this game, where it was like we just completely stopped the pace. The fast break points, the easy transition points all went away. The offensive rebound, second chance points went away, and they started getting a few on their end. The 3-point shots again weren't really falling, and I think. Again, we talk about what kind of 3-point shots. We weren't really moving the ball well. It seemed like everything was coming late in the shot clock. There was like 3 possessions in a row where it seemed like we were just throwing up a heave to beat the buzzer. So it was, again, kind of just like, what are we doing here on offense? It was kind of some baffling stuff. They really had at one point, what is a 15-point game at halftime, I think, and like a 17-point game at one point, got all the way back down to 5. I thought Joe called a good timeout, got Porzingis back in there. And I think did a good job of hammering home the point, get him the ball, fed him, went on a nice little run, stretched it out again early in the fourth quarter. But again, the offense really just absolutely silent in the fourth, too. Let the Rockets, again, with their hustle, get all the way back within 3 at one point. Another Joe timeout, came out, got a quick ball right down low to Porzingis, ramped up the D, got a steal, came down, got a 3 to Pritchard in the corner off some transition, put it back up 8. Tatum finally hit a shot, hit a big sidestep 3 that I think got it out to like 11 points with a few minutes left, and that was kind of the game. But, again, we really kind of saved ourselves because things were going completely sideways in that second half and again in that fourth quarter. So we only scored after, 39 in the second half last game. Tonight we had, 47, only a 20-point third quarter. Third quarters continue to be a bit of a problem.
Only 46, actually. Stat
46,
check.
And I think that's a little bit padded by the last couple of minutes that the Rockets kept fouling and stuff probably a lot later than they had to because it was shaping up to be another 40-ish point half. And again, after a 70-point first half, I know the Rockets are a good defensive team, but they're missing some key guys who kind of make that defense go. The lineup we were facing tonight, I mean, you saw what we were able to do to them in the first half, and then, like I said, they just kind of upped their physicality in the second half, and we didn't respond very well. Luckily, when you've got as big of a talent advantage as the Celtics do and made some nice moves, so they were able to turn it around, able to right the ship and save it, pull out the win. But again, not the most inspiring second half. Hey, again, win's a win, road game, first night of the back-to-back, missing some guys, all this stuff. Again, I don't want to be the guy complaining about what it ended up being a 9-point win on the road against a solid home team. But again, you would have liked to see him clean it up and kind of run away with things the way that the Nuggets game went and the way that the first half went.
Yeah, I would say I agree that the Rockets are usually like a pretty good defensive team, especially at home. But I would say the team we played tonight wasn't really that team. So 9-point win against this Rockets team is, again, win's a win. Not going to be too upset about it. But it definitely, there's definitely some cause for concern there. I do want to dive a little bit more into that second half because, like you said, we had 70 points in the first half, 46 in the second half. Seeing something very similar in the last game against the Nuggets too. What is it like? What are you seeing? I think part of it. And we'll get into the individual players after this, but Tatum's shooting night did not have a great shooting night. Do you think that's part of it, or what do you think is going on in the second half? That's kind of you go from 70 points, kind of blowing this team out. It looks like we're going to run over them, and then the way they play in the second half. What are you seeing that you think is the cause of that?
So, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint exactly one thing when so many things change. But again, it does kind of seem like they come out of the gates with all this physicality and pace. And it seems like that's really just the key. They lose that pace, and I don't know if it's like a complacency thing. I don't know if they just lose some rhythm in the halftime, or if, again, they just think, okay, we're up 15, we can kind of relax a little bit, and the other team's doing the opposite. So, I mean, the Rockets were definitely playing different defense in the first half than what we saw in the second half. So I don't know if the Celtics kind of just got hit in the mouth and weren't really ready for that. Just thought that, like, okay, we can kind of just coast through this, I guess. It's not a big deal. I think that's a little part of it, but I think, again, it's kind of what we're doing is not good enough, and we're slowing down way too much. I mentioned the lack of transition in the second half, the lack of fast breaks, and I mean, part of that starts with the defense. We weren't getting some stops maybe as frequently as we were. We weren't forcing turnovers that lead to that stuff the way we were in the first half, where it seemed like we were flying around, getting our hands on everything, lots of steals, lots of blocks that were leading to easy baskets, but the easy baskets dried up, and then it seemed like our ball movement just dried up too. The driving kicks at the beginning of shot clocks weren't there. It's just slowing the game down to the point where it's really hurting our offense, and we're making it so hard on ourselves to score, where then it takes really perfect execution and really good shot making to score. And it's like we have too much talent to do that. We don't need to rely on that. So it's, again, it's one thing where it's this team, but when we do it against Denver, and credit to Denver, I mean, that they're a championship team. They made it that kind of game. But tonight it felt like it was kind of our own fault. Yeah, we did it to ourselves a little bit. And I really do think once you kind of start doing that, it's hard to dig yourself out of it. So like when things start going sideways, it's hard to just be like, okay, we need to ramp it back up once you slow it down. So I don't know what they can do to kind of keep that energy and pace from the beginning of the game, because we've said a million times a 10-15 point lead in this league is not not the game's over with a half to play. And it almost bit us tonight. It easily could have. They got it down to 3. I think they had free throws to cut it to 1, and Whitmore missed both of them, and then we were able to turn things around a little bit out of that timeout. But this is a game where we probably should have been resting in the fourth quarter. You come out, blitz them in the third quarter, and we could have been up 20-plus points. Should have been up 20-plus points. And again, it just got super stagnant. The ball stopped humming. The guys stopped moving, and a lot of settling for shots or just shooting contested shots at the buzzer.
Yeah, and it's something, too, that, like we've kind of mentioned it before, where it's just so bizarre when they start to play that way. They start to slow down like that, and you can tell that it's not working, and they're kind of getting these rush shots at the end of the shot clock, which, again, so occasionally that can work out because we have guys who can make big shots, but in a lot of other cases, it's like they just become bad shots. They miss, and those lead to bad opportunities on the other end. And it's just kind of baffling because, like we've said, it's like they have to realize that what they're doing, like the way they're moving the ball in that first half and the way they're like suffocating guys on defense. Like I think it was capped off perfectly by Derrick White just stuffing the shit out of Sengun right there at like the end of the second half. Like he just tries to put up a heave that would have no shot really going anyway and still gets the shit stuffed out of him. That kind of was like the way they're playing defense. And then you get to that second half and it's like you said, things just become completely sort of different. And it's just a bizarre, it's almost like you're trying to get into like the psychology of it all. Like what makes them just kind of stop doing that, at least on offense, where the ball moving looks so pure and so nice sometimes. But then when they go on these runs, it's like you're just banging yourself in the head wondering like, why are we getting in motion so late? Why are we taking driving, getting to the hoop, the defense is collapsing, and then we're just trying to kind of put the ball up instead of like the defense is collapsing. That's when you move it. And that's when we spin it around the 3-point line and find our shot. But yeah, it's weird. It's just a bizarre 2 games in a row, so not necessarily a pattern yet, but it is just a little bit concerning these second quarters or these second halves.
And I thought it felt similar to last game too, in the sense, like you said, where you could kind of sense it right away, started to slow down, and then they just could not drag themselves out of it. It felt like they were trying to like force their way to the hoop and make something happen, especially the Jays. And I thought, again, there was a stretch where we just couldn't buy a foul. Like the Rockets were being super physical. And at one point it was like we had 5 team fouls, they had 0. So they were being more aggressive for sure. But it's like, we can't just rely on these drives. They're going to get us to the line. Clearly, I mean, I wish we could more, but it's like when that's our offense, again, we shouldn't have to be forcing it. You can tell when the offense is working, we're making the extra pass, we're swinging it around. The defense is a step behind and we're getting easy shots. And then when we're not playing like that, it's slow. We're taking our time to get into stuff. We're not driving and kicking. And even the good drives, like they're well contested and you could, maybe like to get some foul calls. Maybe some games you will, but when you're not, it's just like bad offense. And then a lot of times too, that guy's falling down. So they're kind of getting a fast break or a 5-on-4 the other way. So it's almost like doubling down on the issues there too, and then you're like chasing them the entire game, kind of back and forth, and it doesn't look pretty.
No, it doesn't. I do think too in the second half, a couple of just different notes in the second half. At the end of the first half, they had 0 second chance points. They finished with 10. So they got 10 second chance points in the second half. I think that's definitely kind of a part of what the issue was.
And we had 19 second chance points in the first half. And
in the first half,
23.
yeah. So we only had 4. So it was 4 to 10, right?
Right.
So
they won 10-4 in the second half. And again, I mentioned already their lack of size. It wasn't like they changed anything matchup-wise. They kept going with those guys. They were just working their asses off. And again, it seemed like we got a little complacent. And for the second game in a row, just leaned with 5 guys kind of standing around the perimeter and nobody like moving with action.
Yeah, just a lot of like looking around.
Easy stuff. Yeah. Like we always say, we're fine with the 3-pointers in terms of attempts when they're coming the right way. But these weren't coming from kickoffs out from the post in the second half. They weren't coming from offensive rebounds. They weren't coming from great movement or from extra passes, like stuff like that we like to see. It was, again, just stagnant complacency. Seemed like they were almost just kind of like practice reps, not as opposed to like game reps.
Yeah, yeah, it's bizarre. I think we can kind of shift gears a little bit here, just kind of getting into some of the individual players and the way that they played today. Porzingis obviously had a great game. He came out in the first quarter, as you said, at 15 points, finished with 32. So it wasn't a situation where, like in the Nuggets game, where he comes out blazing hot and then just kind of fades away. It seemed like there was definitely more of an intentional approach by Joe to kind of keep getting him involved in the second half, especially at a few of those moments when things got a little bit hairy. He was draining 3-pointers too. He was 6 from 11 for 3, 11 for 21 for the field, 32 points, 6 rebounds. He also had 5 blocks too, so he was doing it on both ends.
Yeah.
Easily the best player on the court tonight. We'll get into the Jays too, what we saw from them. But what about Porzingis? And is this something where it's like, should we be trying to even on nights when the Jays have it going, does it make sense to kind of just still always set aside like a period of time in the game where we're getting Porzingis just involved? Because it does seem like in some matchups, especially a team you mentioned, they're barely even starting a center. They had Dylan Brooks at power forward, where it's like, should he be like almost like that number one option in certain cases, even if the Jays are kind of feeling it, because they can get theirs regardless. I feel like Porzingis, you kind of set the stuff up for him.
Yeah, I think it depends, obviously, on the game, on the matchup. A team has the luxury of playing the hot hand with basically 4 or 5 different guys at times, so it's a good thing to have. But yeah, again, you could see a night like tonight where they don't have Jabari Smith. Sengun's not like the best defensive player anyway, and they don't have Jeff Green, other guys who can kind of help down low. It just makes too much sense not to get him involved. I mean, we did it last game, I think, by design, knowing that Jokic would be on him, trying to tire him out. Obviously went away from it in the second half. I think tonight, same thing. We knew they were going to be small. We knew we were going to have good matchups. Went out attacking it right away. And again, then I thought, we didn't completely go away from it, but we did kind of get lost in the shuffle, I thought, at times. He took a back seat. I think more of this stuff is just flow of the game. But this game, compared to last game, we were much more purposeful about making sure he was involved when things went south. I think there were multiple plays in the second half where we called timeout, and the first play out of the timeout was post feed to Porzingis. You could see a very concerted effort down the stretch of this game when it did get a little tight, where we were feeding him early and often, making sure he was getting mismatches, making sure he was getting the ball down low. And I mean, a few of those biggest possessions of the game were just feeds to Porzingis, everyone else kind of clearing out. And if they're not sending a double, he turns around and he's shooting, short little mid-range jumpers. We've talked all year about how those have kind of been automatic for him. And again, with the guys they had out there on him, it was kind of easy pickings. So I think it's easy to look at Porzingis as the guy with the mismatch when he's, a 7'4" giant. But I think, there's going to be other games where one of the a team that doesn't have, maybe has smaller guards or doesn't have good wings like the Bucks. You're going to want to emphasize the matchups that the Jays have. So again, it can be pick your poison on different nights with who you want to feed. Tonight was a clear Porzingis night. And it was just better to see in this game that when the game tightens up, we can't kind of forget the game plan and just default to like, okay, give it to one of the Jays and let them make a play. And remembering, hey, we can actually just give it to Porzingis and let him get a play, which we, again, talked about last game. That's kind of what we got him for. When the offense bogs down, you've got this guy who adds a whole new element to, like, unbog things. And tonight it was like we remembered that, and Joe made sure that... not sure that's a word, but we'll go. I think everyone knows exactly what I mean if they've watched the Celtics the last few years. And that was kind of what happened. We were able to just dump it into Porzingis over and over again, and he got big, easy looks down the stretch and hit a couple of those very short jumpers, turnarounds, where it's just easy pickings against those smaller guys. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of nights where that's there and where that is the best source of offense, especially in crunch time when things do get tight and these are these kind of dragged out half-court possessions, that's a bonus for you. Clear out, you get your 5 good shooters around him, send Porzingis down there, give him a good feed, and let him go to work. If they send a double, you're going to have – that's when you can get the ball out and then keep the defense moving with extra passes. You're going to get a wide-open 3 for a really good shooter. So I think part of it is the Jays just trusting that and adjusting to the fact that, like, hey, it's not all on us to create everything and make all the plays down the stretch. So I'd rather them take their lumps like last game in the regular season and get more and more comfortable as the year goes on, realizing we've got a legit third guy who can score and create shots on offense.
I feel like there's some points where it's just like almost like how a lot of times when things would get bogged down last year, it'd be like there shouldn't be a possession where Tatum doesn't see the ball. Like I feel like there's a lot of times where there shouldn't be a possession where we at least, I mean, obviously kind of when we're running it and things are moving fast, you might not have a shit, but if we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're setting up like a half court, we're not like moving a lot of pace, just always kick it off with a little like lob into the paint to Porzingis and kind of go and kind of feel the defense there. It's almost like it's not apples to apples, but it's almost like I picture like in football where they will like kind of send guys in like motion to see like, okay, is it a zone or like, not that I don't mean they're going to be playing zone and man and basketball wise. I'm just saying like sort of see like what is the defense going to do if we put the ball into the paint with Porzingis? Like, are they going to start to collapse into him? Are they going to stay home? If they don't, and then from there you kind of make the choice. There's just stretches where I think even again, I think just like almost anytime we're kind of we find ourselves out of that like fast paced thing and we're just kind of setting ourselves up. We should, obviously with like, it's not exactly how we play. We run a lot more like kind of pick and roll offense, but I just feel like there's a lot of opportunities to kind of just feed the ball into him and sort of see what the defense is going to do. I don't know.
Right. No, definitely. And even if the matchup isn't one tonight where it's such an obvious like size mismatch, we've just talked relentlessly about how he's such a mismatch creator in just the way he plays no matter what. So it's like even when things are going well and we're moving with that pace, we can use him to shift the floor. And whatever the matchup is, again, when it's smaller guys like tonight, send them down to the post, play through them out there. When it's a big, guy like a conventional Gobert type of center, bring him up top and run, high pick and roll, high pick and pop, and try to get the big man extended outside, open up the driving lanes for other guys. Like, it's not going to be feeding him on the post and him scoring 30-plus points every night, but the more you use him in the offense and make him a part of the action will make it easier for every other guy you have too.
Yeah. And again, and you mentioned just kind of keeping around. And again, this is kind of one of those matchups where it's almost like the opposite, where we didn't need to kind of pull the big guy out, but he hit 6 threes tonight.
Well, and Sengun, they weren't really even having on him because Sengun's only going to play drop. They don't want him coming out guarding guys on the post. They don't want him switching. So, I mean, that was opening up some good looks, and you were seeing that was why there were some hilarious matchups of guys trying to guard Porzingis. But again, like, we do have so many options that if we're patient and execute and kind of play intelligently, the defense is basically always going to have to give us something just because of all the good stuff we have. So tonight it was easy stuff for KP on the post. Another night it'll be something else. Yeah.
The Jays, I would say had kind of a tough night. Tatum still finished with 17 points. Shot 4 for 17 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. Jaylen gets himself a triple-double, which is obviously good at 11 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. He shot 6 for 14 and 1 for 3 from the field, from 3-point. So the one thing that I will say is where they were having kind of a tough shooting night, it was good that we didn't see them combine to go like 3 for like 20 like they did for the last one from 3. It was like they kind of recognized that the threes weren't falling, so they were at least attempting, I feel like, less shots from outside the 3-point line, which again, I think a lot in those situations too, you miss a 3, I think it's easier to get that second chance point, easier to get those offensive rebounds in a lot of cases with a shot closer to the rim. But let's start with Tatum, I guess. What do you are we making anything out of it? Obviously it's 2 games, but is there any level of concern in the shooting? He was so hot to start the month.
Yeah.
But it's a tough part of the season. You're kind of hitting that almost halfway point. But what do you think about Tatum's night?
Yeah, I think the fact that he was so hot for like the 2-3 week stretch before the last 2 games makes it feel like just a little blip. And again, a couple tough shooting nights, but I thought he did a good job of it was a palatable shot diet. He ended up with 6 threes. I think he only had 1 at the half. And he hit obviously the biggest one of the game. Probably that side step at the end was kind of the tag. So obviously,
they made me think of the Philly call. He's not always there, but he's always on time.
Yeah, Good for his only 3 of the night. That was a good one to have for sure. But overall, I mean, a couple of those he just missed. A couple of them were catch and shoot in the corner, which is like the highest percentage shot he can take. So, just tough shooting, like you mentioned. But I thought overall, I liked what he was doing. Got 12 free throw attempts. I know he missed a few, but he did do a good job of getting to the line, which is all we really want to see when the shot's not falling. So that was good, and it seemed like there was a lot of other plays again where he probably could have got to the line, was just not getting any calls, and was missing a lot of stuff around the rim, which I'm generally going to live with. And again, I think they were playing super physical. Obviously, it was a weird lineup we mentioned, but those guys between Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and Amin Thompson, they're all pretty long. They're all super athletic, and you could see they were kind of bothering them just with like length and activity.
I just feel like those are three guys that shouldn't really be able to give Tatum problems.
No, and it was a lot of Brooks on the Jays too. And again, I think he was getting good shots. It just felt like he was getting to the line a lot. He was missing a lot of shots he usually makes, and he was definitely not getting any calls when there was some marginal contact that he certainly could get. Like, I thought he could have shot a lot more free throws, could have ended up with a bigger night, but just never really got it going. But again, I appreciate kind of him deferring and not just forcing like iso ball down the stretch in the fourth quarter when it wasn't going. So that's growth, I would say. And you could see he was making a concerted effort to feed Porzingis in the post, which is not hard and not something that every superstar is going to be willing to do in, close games like that. So props that on a bad night, he didn't kind of let it affect him. I thought, again, he's always playing good defense, which you live with. And then from Jalen's perspective, same thing. Obviously not the best shooting night, but it's super involved passing the ball. Great night of playmaking and passing the ball. Again, if you told me preseason with this roster, we'd have a night where Jalen and Sam Hauser are our 2 leading assisters, I would have definitely raised an eyebrow. But hey, they did a good job. And again, a lot of that was unselfishness with extra passing. And Jalen had hit Porzingis several times. We've mentioned those guys obviously have a great connection. So he kept it up on defense, and a lot of that, again, guys like Brooks pestering you, who we talked about, these certain kind of guys who, if it's like game 7 of a playoff series, you're going to raise the intensity, you're going to match their physicality, you're going to bust your ass for 40 minutes and do what it takes to get it done. But some of these guys you see in a regular season, and I think you're just like, oh, dude, all right, like, please take it down a notch. Like, just a total pest, someone who's obviously not fun to play with. So I think, same thing, kind of, I appreciate that neither of them was forcing it, and they weren't getting a ton of calls, and they weren't having a lot of shots falling. They were kind of happy to let White and Porzingis do a lot of the heavy lifting, which worked out.
I think it was nice to see Jalen kind of being a little bit more of like a playmaker. You could tell early he had a lot of assists early. I think he said, what do you have, 5 assists in the first half? So again, it's kind of like when the shot's not falling, it's good to see them make kind of a transition. Then it did. The comment you just said about him and Housley in the team and assists, it does kind of like, this did feel almost like a bizarre world game, because I think on like the other half of that is you have Derrick White leading the team in rebounding. Right. I'm a little confused. I thought he had 12 rebounds, but I'm looking right now at the box score, and it's saying that he had 11. So I don't know if like they adjusted one. And also, I also thought that Kornet had 10, but it's showing 9 here. It's on 2 different apps, so I don't really know. They must have. I know that the box. It's not like an official box score right away, but either way.
But yeah, White and Brown technically are 2 starting guards tonight. Both are 2 leading rebounders with 11 each. So
yeah, it does. It almost does feel like a little bit of like a bizarro world kind of situation. Sure. But do you want to talk at all? Well, actually, I want to kind of talk about Luke Kornet's night. I think Kornet had an awesome game tonight. 8 points, 9 rebounds, maybe 10. It definitely said 10 right after the game. Like the final tweet we sent out had 10. But I'm looking on between the 2 score apps that I use. They're both now saying 9. But either way, the guy was kind of like everywhere. He had I think my favorite play that he had in the game was where he kind of jumped up to interrupt that alley-oop they did. Yeah. Ran the floor, got the dish from Jalen to kind of reward him for running that floor, and flushes it in there.
Yeah, that was a huge basket too.
Yeah, exactly.
They had all the momentum at that point. They had cut it to 5, I think.
Yeah, I think
big sequence.
Kornet's play, I mean, again, I feel like it's sort of, he almost started out the year as almost like this sort of like gimmick, like almost just like kind of funny guy that we'd like put in like, oh, look at, but I think he's like, again, the big concern that we talked about for the bench was that third big who's going to play. And I think that the fact that Kornet now, when Al or KP is resting, can come in and actually give you pretty quality minutes. I think he's gotten a lot better defensively too. He had one play where he sort of went to help Porzingis on a double team on Sengun, and he dished it under. That was maybe like the one like kind of mistake defensively I think that I can remember. him like clearly making, but it's just awesome like to have a guy like a lot of those concerns I had are just sort of gone, and then with kind of the emergence too on a smaller scale of Kata sort of being able to play a little bit more. There was a few times today where he was the only big out there, Kata, I mean. But it's Luke especially, just a great game. Like he's just a gamer. He just hustles, and it just seems there was a point too when Scal was saying like, "Oh, it might be time to like get like Brissett out of there. He's not playing well." And he's kind of wondering who he's going to go to, and then he puts like Luke back in, who had only been out for like a couple of minutes. So I think that shows that Joe's sort of like, all right, we got to kind of right the ship here. Let me get Luke Cornett out there.
Definitely, yeah.
But it's awesome. True. It's great to see him playing this way. So. Doesn't need to do a whole lot offensively. He had 3 blocks too.
Yeah.
So, when he gets his shots, he makes them. I mean, he was 4 for 4, so he shot 100% from the field. So 4 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds. I'm a big Cornett fan. I am.
Yeah.
I made the case for him outplaying Wemby last week. So, I think he's just riding off that high. He's playing really well.
He's been rock solid. He had another really good game tonight. Obviously, no Al, so his role and minutes were upped a little bit. But yeah, it was, again, we obviously have led with kind of the obvious mismatch Porzingis had with their small size. Well, same thing for Luke. Obviously, he came in and picked right that up, especially when they didn't have Sengun on the court. They basically, they played Eubanks a little bit, but they almost have no big presence in there. And Cornett, same way. He got right down low. I'm sure all of those shots were either, dunks or layups. Like, he's not doing anything crazy. He knows where to go. The guys can beat him. They were throwing it up to him. He had a few nice offensive rebound putbacks. And he had also one of the biggest baskets of the game down the stretch that kind of iced it too. I think we were up 8. Possession was going nowhere. Tatum threw up a heave close to the shot clock buzzer. Air ball. Cornett, long arms. He went right up and got it.
That was a pass.
Yeah, well, whatever you want to call it. It was a really big play, really clutch play with like 2 minutes left. Kind of iced it. So
what's like the NBA's ruling? This might be like a stupid question. What's like the NBA's ruling on that? Will that count as an assist?
No.
Why?
Because it's counted as a shot. It can't be both.
But if no one touches it and it's just an air ball, it doesn't touch anything. How do we know? Could just be a very well disguised pass.
Well, if Tatum starts throwing moonball passes that are the exact same form as his jump shots, then maybe they'll start to look into it. But I think I don't think he's going to get that one, unfortunately, especially not from the road scoring. Yeah. But yeah, no, great stuff from Cornett all around. Really, really good to see that. Just heady stuff. And you mentioned the trust Joe had in him. That same thing. He had him in there. Hauser obviously started the game, but he closed with Cornett and Porzingis. He put Cornett in for crunch time, trusted him, and he came through with a few big plays. Certainly rewarded Joe for his trust, as he's been super rock solid lately, and certainly was again tonight. I like that double big lineup too. It's another thing going back to before the season. If you told me we were going to roll with some double big lineups with Luke and Porzingis in there, I would have thought, well, that's weird, but they were pretty effective. And I thought again tonight, when they were in there in the first half, it was like the Bash brothers down low. They were blocking everything on one end and just relentlessly offensive rebounding on the other. And they each had a possession, like 2 in a row. First it was Porzingis, then it was Luke, where they were almost just playing volleyball, like tipping it to themselves off the glass multiple times until one of them finished it. So, yeah, great stuff. He was huge for us tonight on both ends.
Do you think him having Hauser in down the stretch, or not having Hauser in down the stretch, had anything to do with Hauser shooting 3 for 12?
Yeah, and I think all 3 of those were in the
12
first half.
seems like a lot of 3-pointers for Hauser. And I know that they weren't all bad looks. I know that's what we'll say. Like, they're good threes, but
and when
12
Sam's in there,
is a lot of 3-pointers for him to be shooting.
Yeah, obviously, again, larger role tonight as he was in the starting lineup, played a few extra minutes, and I thought mostly good looks. Like, that's the thing. When Hauser's in there and he gets the ball, we want him to shoot. I thought several of those were good looks. He went ice cold. He was like 3 for 5, 3 for 6 in the first half, and just 0 for in the second half. It's tough because, again, each look in itself, if you watch, I'm sure you're like, yeah, I trust Hauser to shoot that. There were a lot of corner looks, obviously catch and shoot stuff. So I thought he had a good game. Again, Hauser, obviously 6 assists, continues to play pretty good defense. He had a couple blocks, I think, too, mixed in there. So I'm not going to be mad at Sam ever. But yeah, tough shooting night for him. And then, yeah, I'm sure that was part of it. Well, generally, if he's in there, I want him shooting.
What if he kicked your dog?
That's what he's in there. No, I'm never going to get mad at him for taking shots.
Oh, all right.
If that wasn't clear, I'm never going to get mad at him. No, yeah, he could do things that would make me mad, but it's generally not going to be him catch and shoot threes. Obviously, I'd like to see more of him go in, but it kind of is what it is. And yeah, I think that was
he's been a little streaky, but you might just have to accept that.
Where it was like in the second half, it was obvious for the second straight game where it's like, all right, all that's kind of working for us is outsizing them down low. So let's go with the double bigs.
Luke Cornett. It's crazy.
And Porzingis.
Well, and Porzingis. Yeah,
I mean, like bully ball down low, beating them with size is what's generating most of our good looks and most of our offense. So in the biggest moments of the game, let's go with that instead of playing one guy down low and almost a 5-out offense with Porzingis in there. Let's get a true down low big along with Porzingis, who's like a hybrid big / wing player in terms of his actual style, despite his size. So I think, partially that matchup, and then partially, I'm sure if, Hauser was 7 for 12 on threes, he's probably staying in there. So.
Speaking of guys just kind of using their size down low and making a big impact, Derrick White set his career high for rebounds. His career high before this was, I think, 7 rebounds. Tonight he had 11. Again, maybe 12. I'm almost positive on the broadcast they showed 12 rebounds for Derrick White because they said he had 5 more than his previous total. So, again, the intern, when we get the final box score, will correct me either way. But either way, he had a great double-digit, we'll call it as a double-digit rebounding night for Derrick White. What do you make of, a guy at his size just being able to kind of go out there and do that? He also had 2 blocks. Obviously, we mentioned the one against Sengun at the end of the half that was just incredible. The best part about it, too, is when he blocked him, he just started to, walk towards, the tunnel or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of looked over
to bench or something, too.
Yeah, it looked like he was pointing over at, Sam Cassell or something like that, who I think has worked with a lot of these guys about kind of playing big down in the post like that. But, Derrick White again, so he had 21 points tonight. Yeah. Big scoring night for him. It's crazy how reliable he's sort of. Well, I guess I shouldn't say crazy, but just for on a rebounding sense, for a guard of his size to be able to play as big as he does sometimes, it's got to be just kind of a crazy mismatch thing for a lot of other teams to figure out what the hell am I supposed to do about this when you're covering this guard and he's out there jumping and taking down all these rebounds. What do you think of Derrick White's night?
Great Derrick White night on both ends. We needed a big scoring night, and we needed it. He hit a lot of timely shots, I thought. Helped get the offense going a few times when it stagnated. I thought it was weird. In the start of the second half, they took him out, super early. They put in Pritchard for White, not even 4 minutes into the second half. I'm not really sure what was up with that. If it was just they wanted to change, the substitution patterns later in the half and the quarter. But I immediately looked. I was like, wait, does he have 4 fouls or something? And he didn't. So not sure what the deal was with that. Seemed like an odd move at the time, and it didn't go great. And we kind of got our footing back when White subbed back in later in the quarter. Him and Porzingis came back in. So not sure what was up with that, but yeah, really good night. And no surprise. I think this would match the eye test that Porzingis was a plus 18, White was a plus 13. There were only 2 guys with a double-digit positive plus minus on the night, and you kind of felt it when those 2 were in. They were the ones who had it going in a lot of ways, kind of, especially with the scoring, which we needed on a night like tonight from Derrick. So good to see him have that back. The rebounds, I don't make anything too crazy of it. It's obviously cool, and it's a great luxury to have a guard who can grab 11 rebounds. Not something, not something obviously we're expecting to see every night, but I think he's just such an intelligent player. He's so good at reading the ball, knowing where it's going to be. And a lot of it, I think, it's just him beating guys in spots. It's not like he's skying over guys for rebounds, but we already mentioned multiple times the Rockets are basically playing 4 guards. And a lot of guys who are not the most disciplined and experienced players in the NBA, so they can kind of make up for it at this point with their athleticism and stuff, those Rockets players, but I'm sure they're not probably remembering to box out Derrick White every single possession. Would be kind of
better start.
Well, yeah, exactly. He's gonna do it if you don't. And some of it is probably just the way they're matching up and who's boxing out, and him just being the one who's in there kind of to clean up the work. So
yeah, I do think
I don't make a ton of it, but that's just the kind of player he is. I don't make a ton of it because it's not that surprising. It's more surprising to me that his previous career high was 7.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. He does. He just has a knack always for the ball is, whether it's rebounding, stuffing the shit out of you, stealing the ball.
Yeah,
he does. He just kind of always has kind of a knack for where it's going to be.
No, he plays like a center.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to add on the game in general?
Just a couple of, the other bench guys, the stay ready guys, we already talked about a few of them, but Pritchard I thought was awesome yet again. He came up big, 3-5 on threes. A few of those were really, really timely buckets. He's just so reliable. He had another
Cowboy P, as Drew was calling him.
Yes, down in Houston, of course. He had another one of those plays. One of the nicest plays of the game. I thought someone fed him when he was kind of cutting, and he did that same thing where he dribbled under the Gretzky's office move, got it out to the corner to Brissett, who kicked it to the top for Hauser for one of the threes he did hit. That was to put us up like 13 or something in the first half. Felt like it was kind of the best sequence of the game for the Celtics, and Pritchard was right in the middle of it. So another guy like Kornet, he's kind of the point guard version of what Kornet's become for the center, just a guy we've come to rely on so much. He was great. And I thought Brissett gave really good minutes again and did two things. Like, one, he kind of like ISO'd a guy, took him off the dribble, and like jab stepped and hit an elbow jumper. That was like, okay, that was something. And then he caught the ball in the corner later, kind of pump faked and like beat the guy off the dribble, did almost like a little Euro step in the lane and finished with a layup. So I was like, Jesus, like this guy.
Yeah, he did some nice little offensive moves. I was thinking, like, if he's able to just do that in, whatever limited minutes he gets, that's going to be a problem for some other teams.
Right. Yeah,
you got to start worrying about O'Shea Brissett just taking it to the rack against you.
Seriously, it was super. Two different possessions where I was like, "Wow, he's doing that now." Okay, so I mean, again, a night where we've missing,
especially for a guy who, when he first started playing, anytime he shot, it was like the grossest thing.
Yes,
like ever.
It's alarming.
So
had to take cover.
He came a little ways. Probably has something to do with being a little bit more confident. He's had more time out there, but I just remember when he first came out. Anytime he shot the ball, I was like, "What the fuck is going on with that?" So. Good to see he's figuring it out.
Yeah, so I mean, again, on a night where both Jays are kind of slumping, especially shooting the ball, and we're obviously missing Allen Drew, to see those guys on the bench just seamlessly come in and to the point where they're basically all super reliable and got it done big time in their minutes, added a huge boost tonight. So love to see that.
Yeah. All right. What do you have for us? Kicking it over to around the NBA.
I do have a couple of little comments on the game.
Right.
Just funny things that I did definitely want to mention, but didn't deserve like a full segment. One, probably got lost in the shuffle, but I love it's like the first possession of the game. Jaylen pump faked and went for the off the backboard self alley-oop, which we've seen two guys pull off in the last week.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards and Embiid. Jaylen tried to match it, and that one would have been like massively cocked back.
He was
caught.
it was.
It would have been awesome. He lost it on the way up, but I had no problem going for it. Honestly, it kind of like set up perfectly. It didn't seem like a force. Would have been just an awesome way to start the game, but obviously missed it. I also love that we went to the 2-1-2 zone in the first half with Tatum in the middle of it, which I don't think I've seen yet. We've had a lot of it with, it's always been Holiday in the middle, so I wasn't sure if we'd use it without Drew tonight. They put in Tatum, got a steal in the first possession. I kind of like that because he obviously just has so much length. He's such a good athlete. So I, at first, was a little surprised, and I was like, I actually like this a lot. I don't think we saw it again that I noticed in the game, but we saw it for a few trips in that first quarter, and that's something that to me is very intriguing. So I don't know if we'll see more of that or not, but I love just, again, that we're trying stuff in games like this. Like, why not? And Tatum's good enough that you could definitely be able to find something. Yeah, you could definitely find something. Exactly. And then the other thing was, we mentioned Jaylen got a triple-double. A little questionable the way he got it, as there was 19 seconds left, and he kind of ran up the court. Probably could have just dribbled the clock out, but went back. Or could have gone in for a dunk, which he had just done the possession before.
Yeah.
He kind of dribbled it out and just laid it off for O'Shea Brissett, who laid it in. They didn't show Ime on the broadcast, and again, I didn't seem like he was doing staying around for a lot of hugs and high fives after the game. So I don't know if he was pissed off. I don't know.
I mean,
how you feel about
that. Timeout like 2 possessions before. I feel like that's kind of saying like we're going to play to the end.
Right, and he did. He fouled with 4 seconds left, down by like 8. So
yeah.
I think you could make the case back that way, but it felt a little like weird that last minute. Like you could feel a little bit of tenseness between maybe the coaches and the teams, and like I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see us, if the roles were reversed, thinking it was kind of a slimy move to get a triple double like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's not like the most ethical triple double, I guess you could say, with the way he got that final assist.
Right.
But I do wonder if there is just kind of like a thing where they do want to sort of stick it to. I know that they've all kind of said the right things about like Ime and all that stuff, but I wonder if there is sort of like a little bit of a, they got to kind of feel still some type of way. I know that I think the last time they played, Tatum said, Ime's my guy or whatever, and I'm sure he feels that way. But in a way, that almost would sort of frustrate you even more. That you had this guy that you sort of felt this close connection with or whatever, and he, basically just couldn't keep it in his pants long enough to remain as your coach. Like, yeah, I know the player, like when they got him, the players were pumped about it. When the Celtics hired him, I mean, so I wonder if there is just kind of like some level of like, I don't know, he's almost like that friend that you sort of had that's just like, I really like this guy, but he's just like, he's just still so like crazy when we go out. Like, I don't know, I don't really want to like, I just can't. So it's just like, wonder if they kind of feel a little bit of that way with Ime, where it's like, all right, we're going to kind of just like stick it to him a little bit. You could be here on the right side of this, but you're down here now in Houston because of all the shit that happened. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we know how competitive and how much of a psycho Joe is, and eBay is too. So you would have to think, just like human nature, there's a little extra juice like in that matchup. Like there just has to be.
Especially too with what he said, like how Mazzulla was like not really his guy either.
Yeah, right. So, for sure. No, there's definitely a little of that, and then there was always the rumors that if anyone butted heads with Ime, it was kind of Jaylen, that those two didn't like each other. So first he had that dunk where he could have kind of dribbled it out, and said he got the steal and did a pick six. Could have been game, and said he went and did a monster dunk. And then the next possession, again off the rebound, gets the assist. So I don't know how much of it is, if any of it is him wanting to stick it to Ime or like making a point. Or
it's better
maybe
for the
it's
podcast
just...
if it is.
Yeah,
so we'll go with that.
I don't mind it. We've talked about how much we want to embrace rivalries. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know if that was. I'll be curious to go back and look at all the post game comments and see if Ime gets asked about that, or Jaylen, or anyone, and if we get any interesting sound bites out of it. But
yeah,
it was definitely noteworthy.
We'll check those out, and we'll retweet it from the @Chuddy's Corner account too.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely good stuff. But that was pretty much it.
All right. Let's kick it over then to around the NBA. What do you got for us around the league?
Yeah, well, sticking with, I guess, talking a little bit about the coaching, Joe Mazzulla. After we went off air the other night, after the Celtics lost to the Nuggets, we had our old friend, and I would say current enemy, Kendrick Perkins. The big face at ESPN, trotting him out there and ripping on Joe Mazzulla, which he's not the only guy in the media doing that, but I believe his quote was that if you put Joe Mazzulla's brain in a bird's brain, the bird would fly backwards, which I'm not really sure
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
What he's trying to say, but it's just so like out of line. And I mean, Perk is obviously intolerable, but it's usually like harmless, goofy, intolerable. But this is just obnoxious to even say that. And I don't know if he's at this point just thinks he's too big for it, but the guy he changes his takes every single night. The Celtics look great, and he's like, I'm the Celtics, the Jays are awesome, we're gonna win, we're so good. When they lose a game, and he's like, Mazzulla doesn't have a brain, I don't know. He's the worst. I hate it.
I think one, I don't mind, I guess I should leave with this. I don't mind, like, if you used to play with the Celtics, like, you obviously can like talk poorly when the team's playing poorly, so I don't mind sometimes if he goes a little back and forth, but to me, just the comment itself, first of all,
so
just
uncalled
like
for.
It's like it's not even like uncalled for. Like I'm not even like clutching my pearls about it or anything, but I just think it's just like a weird, stupid saying. Like, is that just like I've never heard anyone like? Is that like a wherever the fuck he's from? Like
maybe
small town. Like
I don't
put their bird in a brain. The bird would fly backwards. Like
he just made it up and thought it sounded like clever, but
right.
No,
I think it's kind of like his shtick is like this sort of like I don't know.
Well, it's an awful shtick. That's a shtick. I think it's more he's just like I said, I have no problem. You want to criticize Mazzulla, like just because you play for the Celtics doesn't mean for me to like you. You have to always like say the Celtics are the best, whatever. I just think he loves to try to play both sides. When they're going well, he's like thinks he's part of like the leader of like Celtic Nation, and then when they're awful, he's like saying this stupid shit. But again, it's not like that. It's like offensive to me, but it's just like. Again, you're a national mainstream NBA analyst, and you watch a game, and your takeaway is to like make fun of the coach's brain. Just like what?
I didn't even think that there was really much like. I don't even think it was really a Mazzulla like game anyway. Like I don't really think there's a lot.
Yes, again, whether it is or not, like you're paid to analyze the game. If you don't like his coaching, tell us what he did wrong. Tell us what you'd do differently. Just stay up there and make wisecracks about the guy like just being an idiot. It's just. That's what I mean when I say uncalled for. Yeah, I'm not like offended, but it's just like
and like
pathetic.
The other thing to keep in mind too, because you mentioned that he gets paid to do this, like he's basically there because all of their actual sort of like talent they had got laid off because ESPN is just a sinking ship. I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if eventually NickParano.com goes and offers to buy out ESPN and take over, sort of from there. But
already in the works with Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, exactly. Since Chuddy's Corners came on, Sports Illustrated went down. ESPN is next. But so I think there's kind of like a thing with it. It almost speaks to a bigger issue that I think that there is at ESPN in general. Where
sports
I just think
media
that
in general, probably.
Well, yeah, I guess I shouldn't limit it to just ESPN because there really isn't a lot of these mainstream sports media. It's like they've all kind of put themselves in this bind where they have to pay all this money for this talent, and it's just not a return on that investment. They're just not seeing it. So now we're stuck with guys like Scal as like the go-to guy, or I'm not sorry, not
Perk.
Scal. Guys like Perk as like the go-to guy for breaking down games, and he's just I don't know. I just don't think he's so very good at it either way.
He's terrible.
Even when he's saying good things about us, it's just not good.
No, 100%. He's just not good at the job. But like my other thing also is, I at least get it where some of these guys are great like entertainers and have good personality. Like it's not like Stephen A. Smith is blowing anyone away with his film breakdowns and X's and O stuff.
Right.
But he's obviously good at what he does. Like, is there anyone who likes Perk and wants this and is like, oh, Perk, so I'm like, I want to see what Perk says. It's like, there can't be anyone from any fan base who wants this. And that's the part to me that's more shocking with ESPN. Like, I don't know, like, they always just try to tell us, like, no, like, this is what sells. It's like, I think everyone would rather see, like, Zach Lowe, Tim Legler, JJ Redick have an intelligent conversation about basketball for 5 minutes. Like, if I'm wrong, maybe I'm just wrong. But to me, like, people are tuning in to watch basketball. I really don't think they want Perk up there just spouting off absolute nonsense, hot takes, flip-flopping, like, with nothing to back up his... Yeah, like I said, I don't think anyone is finding this entertaining, like, other than being able to make fun of him on Twitter after, I guess it's getting that kind of engagement, but I can't imagine that's what ESPN is looking for. Like I said, that to me is the shocking part. Like, just I don't care if they're famous people or have personalities, just give me guys who can form coherent sentences about basketball. Is that too much to ask for? We just had this awesome game between the two finals favorites on national TV on a Friday night, and like, this is what you're willingly choose to trot out there as the best your company has to represent the NBA. Like,
it is
one of your biggest
think about all the people that they laid off.
Embarrassing.
The people that they had to lay off. It like is the best that they have. It's like, they don't.
It's not though. Like I said, you have Zach Lowe, you have Tim Legler,
I don't think I've seen
JJ
Tim
Redick.
Legler on ESPN in years. I mean,
he's on there. They trot him out at 2 a.m. on SVP because they think he's probably he's too smart and nerdy and too X's and O's. But it's like I said, after a game like that, I would like to see a little actual friggin' feedback.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, you're making
they need personalities
TNT
too.
idiots look like
Perk
geniuses.
ain't it. They need personalities,
balance,
obviously.
But it's like Wilbon, Stephen A, and Perk. It's like, what are these guys just having a takeoff? Like, someone say like something.
Yeah,
Jesus
I think
Christ.
Stephen A is on obviously a different level. Like,
he is, but I'm saying you have Stephen A already has like that corner covered.
Mm-hmm.
Put Stephen A with like a real analyst and a host. Like, you don't need Perk there with Stephen A already.
You definitely don't need Perk there.
Well, you don't need Perk ever.
And I don't want him to be on the broadcast either. I don't want them inviting him on the
broadcast. If NBC
broadcast.
Sports ever lets him back on, I will not be happy.
Yeah. No.
Like, if he tries to come back on,
remember the game where they just had Perk and Scal? That was it.
No, like, I am like sick of him. And our boy, shout out our boy Drew Carter. I don't know if you were watching the post game, but he called out Perk.
Oh, good.
He did. He said he's like was complimenting Joe for how he coached tonight, some of his timeouts and adjustments, I think. And he said there's someone out there, some people out there in the media who said some stuff that was out of line about Joe recently. And Scal was like, so we want to name some names. And he's like, yeah, all right, Kendrick Perkins. I think we all know who we're talking about. They were like, "Whoa!"
Drew's the man.
Like, you're about to start a Twitter
that's a clip we gotta find.
So, if Drew, I hope you know, like, we'll be manning the battle stations if you have to go to war with that idiot Kendrick Perkins on Twitter.
Yeah,
Celtics Nation and Chuddy's Corner has your back, 110%. We will definitely go to the mattresses.
Drew, I can Photoshop Kendrick Perkins' head on a person doing whatever you want. Like, I can make him be looking like he's doing the dumbest shit. Just say the word.
I don't even know if you need video editing to.
Yeah,
do that. You could just play any of his actual clips.
I could just splice together him talking for 5 minutes, and
you could probably make a good tape of him just at different times saying the exact opposite takes about the Celtics back and forth. Like, you could probably just find 10 different games, like wins and losses, and play him saying
the Skip Bayless. But he's like arguing with himself back and 100%.
forth. 100%. You could easily make one of those with Perk, except it would be even dumber.
I know that your next topic is another person that we shouldn't. We've already spent enough time wasting giving Perk engagement. So let's go ahead and let's try to keep this guy's engagement to an even smaller number, just because he's still, to me, a persona non grata.
Yes, I first just want to. We're of course talking about the Heat retiring Udonis Haslem's jersey, which is just absolutely embarrassing for that organization. Just really, really pathetic stuff. Hate to see it. I saw Paul Pierce was making fun of him on some either Instagram or some social media app.
It was an Instagram comment.
Good for him. The only thing I will say is that it was nice to see that this was at halftime, the ceremony, and all Heat fans were, sucking their own dicks about how awesome it was and what a first-class organization and all this other frig-off stuff. And then The Hawks came out and spoiled it and won the game. DeJounte Murray hit a game winner, his second in a row, by the way, at that point, with 2 seconds left to spoil the night for stupid Udonis Haslem in the Heat. So I'm hoping that this causes some kind of like reverse jinx in order of like karmic proportion for, because I feel like this goes against like what Heat culture stands for, to put a jersey in the Raptors of some like role player turned like player coach task like tool bag. So hopefully
I honestly didn't even know that Udonis Haslem was actually retired. I just assumed that he was.
I think he just did this year because they finally
actually
were like, we're gonna use the roster spot on a like NBA player if that's okay.
Did you see
I
that
think he does have some stupid role in the front office?
He did reply, just to give people who might not know. So there was like an Instagram post of someone saying like "earn not given" or something like that for his jersey retirement, and Paul Pierce had commented like this one was definitely given, like LOL or something like that. But Haslem did respond too. I don't know if you saw that, where he said, "Paul Pierce, my first reaction was to choose violence, but I'm going to spare. But I'm going to spare because I know you ain't like that. You're entitled to your opinion, my boy." So it's just like,
So Paul Pierce, who got stabbed 11 times and didn't miss a basketball game, is not about, can't handle himself when it comes to violence, but Udonis Haslem can. Okay.
Thank you for not choosing violence, Udonis Haslem.
Yeah, thanks, Udonis. I'm sure that's Pierce was so scared.
Yeah. And it's just like, these guys are both like 40 years old. Like no one. Even if those two did fight it, I love Pierce. It would probably be the most like,
this would be like washed up celebrity boxing status.
It'd be
like
so
neither you guys are gonna do anything,
so like,
but
just shut up. But like, not Pierce. You can keep talking shit.
No, but I'm sick of Haslem talking as if he was like,
which is why I'm sick of giving him much attention at all.
No,
so
you're right.
Next topic.
Let's move on. All right, moving on. Some just the latest trade rumblings and rumors coming out. We're starting to see a lot more names mentioned as the deadline grows. Some kind of new-ish ones that came out recently. Obviously, with Siakam and Anunoby off the board, we're kind of going a little deeper. We've talked enough about DeJounte Murray. It seems inevitable that he'll get dealt. Sounds like Zach LaVine now might not get dealt because there's just no market for him. The Bulls are idiots, etc. And he's injured again, probably through the deadline. So it sounds like just nobody's really willing to meet their asking price. His contract's so bad, nobody wants to take it on. So we're getting a little lower. A lot of Kyle Kuzma news coming out. He's obviously playing for the Wizards. If anyone forgot out there, just haven't been paying attention to the Wizards. But
obviously,
the report today was that the Wizards are seeking, if someone wants him, they want at least 2 first-round picks, a player or something like that. So, again, you might sound lofty, but I think there's a lot of desperate buyers out there, and there's just not that many players, and he might be one of the best options. I can see a team talking themselves into it, but they said they wanted 2 first-round picks and that they wanted good first-round picks, too. They said not bad ones like the Raptors got for Siakam, because I guess another thing to keep in mind is everyone considers this 2024 draft to be really low on talent, so to get 2 late picks in this draft was unimpressive. So supposedly the Wizards want more or they want at least 2 first, and they want them not in this draft. We'll see if they get it, but I said, I think they can afford to play hardball.
I know that Kuzma's not like that sought after is because he's probably the first name that I've heard listed as someone who's available in the trade market that I haven't seen a lot of people around Celtics Twitter being like, "Oh, this could be the guy." It's just like, and like, just I don't want.
No,
Kuzma.
he's a fine player.
And I don't want Kuzma, but I do feel like he would kind of fit a little bit of like a need for what we've talked about for the team. But the fact that you haven't heard anyone even mention like, "Ooh," like it's like that just to me just shows that how little value that he is around the league. I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah, no, but I think you might be surprised in the last few weeks. Like, he might become one of the top prizes who's still left. So I wouldn't be surprised if you do see a tweet pop up with his trade, and your first instinct is to be like, "Whoa!" Like, they give up how much for Kuzma? So
Kuzma's the Lakers.
Yeah, imagine if he got back to the Lakers, that'd be hilarious. But no, we'll see. That'll be an interesting one, and he kind of plays that kind of big wing position, can play a little bit of defense, can hit some threes. So it is a sought after role, and he's obviously a solid player, and he's already played on one championship team. So there's some logic there, but we'll see. Other guys who were mentioned, Herb Jones. That was the first time I've heard his name, that New Orleans was willing to listen on Herb Jones. That's an eyebrow raiser to me. He's obviously one of the best defensive wings in the league. He's got a little bit of 3-point shooting, and he signed to a pretty reasonable contract. They just signed him. He's first year of like a $12 million deal, so I'm not really totally sure why they'd want to get rid of him. I know they got an expensive roster coming up, and they have a ton of depth, but to me, that just seems weird. Herb Jones is another guy who, like, my first thought is like, oh boy, he'd be really scary on like any of our rivals. So I definitely don't want to see Herb Jones go to a team that the Celtics are going to have to face in the playoffs, because he's an absolute nightmare to face on defense. He's big and he's long, one of the best wing defenders in the league. So that would be interesting if someone can go get Herb Jones. Another kind of wing player on the market is the detestable Miles Bridges from the Hornets. We all know the story about him, putting his wife in the hospital and whatever else. Can't go to Canada, exactly. But yeah, his name, he's sought after. And again, I mean, he signed the qualifying offer, so he's only making like $7-8 million this year. So if one was able to remove the reality of all the other off-court issues, like just the player himself could probably be had really cheaply, but you'll have to deal with the backlash from your fans and whoever else. I'm kind of glad that the Celtics don't really have the money to make this move even possible. I would hope we wouldn't do it anyway, but I mean, I'm sure someone will. So I hate to see it, but not like shocking, I guess. And then speaking of Miles Bridges, I guess not a trade rumor, but I'm sure you noticed that every Thunder player went to Chet's high school jersey retirement except for one. I don't know. I feel like we almost have to get some story on this, because I don't know what would be a worse look. Like Giddey not showing up to the high school game, or Giddey showing up to the high school game. Like, I don't know what's more
if you're Giddey,
meme-worthy in that situation.
If you're Giddey, you cannot go to that, because all it takes is like one person getting using like a camera perspective to make it look like he's like standing next to some high school girl, and it's just like a rat. Like, that's just the picture that everyone has seen. I mean, he probably learned from when the thing first came out how quickly Twitter can just be absolutely just pile on.
And I mean, they were pretty relentless on him for not being there too, because I think it looked like he was maybe literally like the only guy on the team.
You don't give him like that picture though. Like I said, he could be standing like 10 feet away from a girl, but she's like back here. And I don't know, people know how to do like camera perspectives and stuff where it's like my hands will look that far apart, but they're kind of far. I don't know. They'll do something.
No, it's probably kind of
for me, he definitely made the right move not going. I'd rather have. We'll talk for like a day or two about how he wasn't there, but if there was a picture of him
if he was there,
near, and I think it was a girls' game too. Like when they were coming on the court, it looked like it was a girls' game that was going on.
I don't
like when they showed them coming on the court, it looked like it was a girls' game that was going on. So, right move by Giddey. I'm not a Giddey fan, but if I was Giddey's attorney, I would have advised him not to attend that game.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess that it probably would have been worse to show up. You're right. That's fair. Okay. And then the only other thing, couple interesting games. Last night we had an awesome game between the T-Wolves were hosting the Thunder, two of the upstart teams in the West who are vying to get into contention. It was a great back and forth game. Both teams played really well, really good defensive battle. Felt like a playoff matchup. The T-Wolves had a nice almost double-digit lead for much of the fourth quarter, but the Thunder kind of stormed back. Wolves got really sloppy on offense, turned the ball over a lot. SGA was nails, especially down the stretch. He had a huge step-back three to take the lead. Anthony Edwards got fouled down three with about 4 seconds left. Chance to tie the game. He missed all 3 free throws. The first 2 he missed, and then the third one obviously missed on purpose, but didn't even hit the rim. So the Thunder pulled out a big win. Some unclutch moments from Ant there too. So I think it's fair to bring up.
It's so weird the whole Twitterverse wasn't erupting over it about him being overrated or anything.
Yep. And then not too much going on today. Pretty quiet slate, but the Clippers Brooklyn game against the Nets was kind of a fascinating one. It seemed like the Nets were outplaying them pretty much the entire game. Clippers were kind of sleepwalking. Turned around though and won the game after being down double digits. They had a 41-15 fourth quarter, the Clippers did, and they closed the game on a 22-0 run. And a lot of that was done by them going super duper small, no center, and instead putting in Westbrook and Norm Powell along with Harden, George, and Kawhi. So super interesting lineup. It was almost like Westbrook was playing center a little bit, and like the Nets just didn't really know what to do with it. They didn't really have any answers, obviously, as evidenced by a 41-15 quarter with a 22-0 run to end the game. So they went from down double digits to end up winning, I think, by like 11. So the Nets, that is another team who we will probably start to talk about as sellers sooner than later, I would think, because I think Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith especially are 2 guys that could help almost any teams. I think they could get maybe 3 firsts combined for those 2 wings.
Spencer Dinwiddie is like
Dinwiddie too,
quiet quitting, basically.
Well, yeah. But I mean, that team, they're like a team that's just full of role players, which I think a lot of those guys would be good in the right situation, but right now they don't have like the stars to put them in good positions. So you see a lot of guys just trying to do way too much, and they've been playing really, really some pretty bad basketball for the last couple of months now. So I think
Years.
they are ripe to, well, yeah, I guess you'd say years. But I feel like in years past, they were usually at least competitive. And if anything, playing like maybe a little better than the talent they had this year. It seems like they've got good players up and down the roster. But as a group, it's just not amounting to much. So they should definitely try to blow it up, I think, and see what they can get back for a few of those role players who probably aren't Mikal Bridges or Cam Johnson.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good. Well, I think that when we played them too, Scal was saying like this team is almost in a rebuild, and it's like I feel like there's not even really anyone on the team that I could even see them wanting to like be there like when they are good again. Like by the time they're good again, none of these guys probably will even be there.
Yeah, probably not. But
that was talking Nets.
Good Nets are next.
We have the Mavs coming, or we're going to the Mavs tomorrow. Second night of a back-to-back. Obviously, Al resting tonight. Him and Drew both expect to be back tomorrow. What do you give us just a real quick kind of shout out? What are you thinking about for this game tomorrow?
Well, for one, obviously Al will be back. It'll be interesting to see if Porzingis plays. He obviously was, very involved tonight. Logged a lot of minutes and a lot of like intense minutes. I'd say he played pretty hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a rest. Obviously, it's a road back to back. At least, the Houston to Dallas shouldn't be too daunting travel wise, but still, obviously, a tough spot. The Mavericks have been a tricky team for me to figure out this year. They've been like, when they look good, they look really good. And when they look bad, they look really bad. And they've had a few stretches of East, but they've managed to do a good job and stay in that top 6 or so in the West, which is very difficult. They've done it while missing a lot of guys. Obviously, the headliners for the Mavs, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. They've had some games where they both play really well and look really, really damn good. I feel like they usually play well against the Celtics, so I'm expecting that to be the case. I'm sure they'll show up, kind of really want to go get one, play well. We'll see old friend Grant Williams, who's had a really tough year and has really kind of fallen out of favor lately, seen his minutes dip. He hasn't been producing very well for them, which is unfortunate to see. The rookie Derek Lively down low, big guy who's really, really done some nice things for them, so he's another guy to watch. I think it'll be a tough game, and I think obviously the story will be, Luka and Kyrie against the Jays and this and that, but I think kind of, as we say with a lot of these guys, the more you can get the ball out of those guys' hands, force other guys to beat you, to make tough shots, and, those are guys we should be able to punish if we can bring the energy on the second night of a back-to-back, get back to the way we're playing tonight in the first half. I think we should be able to get out and get a lead on them and hopefully ride that to another impressive road victory.
Yeah, I'm rooting for it. I feel like we played more back-to-backs in the last few weeks than like anyone in the league. The back-to-back stuff, and I don't want to waste a lot of time on it right now. We'll save that maybe for a slow recap night of the game, but it just, I don't know. I don't understand why there has to be so many freaking back-to-backs. I'd rather they just start the season like a little bit earlier, even let it go a little bit longer. And I mean, maybe one or two, but it feels like we've played a shitload of back-to-backs, and they've always been, they just feel like they come on matchups where it's like, I don't know. Like, I think that this could be a really compelling matchup nationally. I don't know if it's nationally broadcast a game or not, but the fact that
I don't know. I don't think so. But
the fact also, the guys resting,
like we just said too, Porzingis probably have to rest. It's like Porzingis back in Dallas, like against Luka.
It would have been, it would have been great.
It's a rivalry, but it's at least like a fun narrative storyline. We go to Dallas once a year, and he's probably not even going to play. Like that sucks.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know. The back to backs are crazy, but yep, we're looking forward to it, and we'll see everyone back here for that game. See you tomorrow night. Again, Celtics get the 116-107 win over the Rockets. Sweep Ime Udoka, who's now 0-2 against Joe Mazzulla for all of our Joe haters, Ime lovers out there. Not that way, not Ime lovers in that way. But yeah,
I'm sure we might have some of those listening too.
Yeah, exactly.
There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah. So that's that. We'll see everyone here tomorrow night for the recap of the Mavs. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe wherever you're listening. Check out the YouTube page, subscribe to that. Like, comment, subscribe, leave comments, leave ratings, all that good stuff. Follow at Chuddy's Corner on Twitter. Chud, you have a good night. Take care.
Peace out, Chuddy.